Now, I've said this once and I'll say it again, but the Walt Disney Company has a lot of issues coming their way for 2025. For starters, we got the Snow White live-action remake, also known as Snow White 2025, for late March of next year. There's already a lot of issues going on with this film based on the 5 failed test screenings and the ongoing drama between both Gal and Rachel Zegler. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, we already know that Bob Iger is having a very tough time really trying to establish any kind of a legacy of his own until he plans, by the way, to step down in 2026. Specifically, when in 2026 does he plan to step down is still a mystery. There's been a lot of rumblings that he wants to step down throughout, of course, Q3 and or Q4 of that year. But interestingly enough, we already know that Iger will lie endlessly to the shareholders, endlessly to the core customer base, to really desperately drag them into the following year and rinse and repeat. Now, Snow White is the best example of yet another failure, just as big as The Acolyte was, and how this is basically getting ratioed across all forms of social media. That's the very first sign that this will be a failure, not to mention Rachel Zegler's terrible PR moves. Now, focusing on what's been going on between Zegler and Gal and how it recently actually got worse, this really is not helping the Walt Disney Company at all, let alone not helping the overall Snow White production at all, as they are planning to do additional reshoots for this movie at last minute. A last-ditch effort, by the way, to save the film from becoming an abysmal failure. Now, on top of this, with multiple divisions at the Walt Disney Company already going through massive setbacks and challenges in the midst of Bob Iger's cost-cutting measures, one significant development going on right now has more to do with the ongoing drama related to Snow White 25 between both Zegler and Gal Gadot. A crucial update to this situation now involves how the Walt Disney Company is preparing to move ahead with additional reshoots for the upcoming Snow White film as a last-ditch effort to improve future test screenings for the film. Now, the reshoots are said to, however, have caused more outrage from Zegler, as now she is already making it clear behind the scenes after getting fired and removed from all Disney projects ahead, except for the current production, Snow White, that she doesn't want to do any additional reshoots with Gal on set or to be anywhere near her during the planned reshoots. Already, Zegler claimed behind the scenes that it was Gal who was the one who was difficult to work with on set even before the last round of reshoots. This sparked a wider divide between the two actresses recently, as Disney is not only trying to fix their planned press tour for the film, but also the second and third acts of the movie, which are, by the way, best described as an abysmal experience by test screeners that needs additional filming to be done, that is said to cost Disney roughly, get this, an extra $10 to $15 million to accomplish that goal. In addition to all of this, Zegler also claims that Gal was very frustrating and stressful to work with, judging by the drama that happened due to Gal's close friendship with director Mark Webb. Already, Zegler is refusing to engage in any reshoots that feature the Evil Queen character, which is putting Disney at a standstill and could likely be a form of Rachel striking back at Disney after she was fired from all projects after Snow White 25. To make matters worse for this entire situation, already Zegler is blaming Gal as the main reason why her scenes were shaved down drastically in the first act of the film. This all comes in the wake of how Gal convinced Mark Webb, as it turns out, the director, to cut out a lengthy scene featuring Rachel Zegler that featured a terrible acting take by Gal as the Evil Queen that was not well received by test screeners. The majority of the cast and crew found Zegler to be extremely difficult to work with on set due to the everlasting drama between the two actresses that was all started by Rachel. Now, guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about this. Now, this is a fine example of how you have a self-absorbed actress that believes that she's all that believes that she's all high and mighty, and that she deserves all the attention and care in the world, when in reality, they're supposed to all be working together as a team when it comes to a production like Snow White, of all things. Now, this is exactly why you have a lot of creative differences between Rachel and Gal, why there's also a lot of personal issues going on right now after what she posted on social media, specifically on X, and by the way, refuses to delete those posts, and that's ultimately what led to Zegler getting the final boot from many other projects, some animated gigs, some live action gigs. But what's even more severe about the situation now is how this is beginning to halt future reshoots for Snow White 2025, and Disney is seemingly stuck, they are frozen, no pun intended, in a position where they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do at this point with this movie. And this movie already has a budget well over the $300 million margin. That's not counting, by the way, marketing expenses, which they're already trying to dial back on, which is going to give them less exposure. You know, it's kind of like a catch-22. But this is a big situation right now between Gal, Rachel, the Snow White 25 film, and how much of a disaster it's really going to be. I like to call this the Acolyte 2.0. Main reason being is that it is getting ratioed across the board, like on a historic level that we have never seen before for a live-action project based on an animated classic now. So this will basically be a repeat of the Acolyte as far as backlash levels go, as far as how many people go ahead and check this thing out, and what the overall experience is going to be like for the Walt Disney Company dealing with that backlash. So again, there's a lot of conversations going on right now. We talked about this weeks ago. They're really trying to meddle with the idea of just throwing this on Disney Plus instead of putting it in theaters. Do I think that's ultimately going to happen? I highly doubt it. I think that Bob Iger's doubling down to put this in theaters, and he really wants to actually make that happen at all costs, no matter what the board of directors say. However, on top of this, in conclusion, it even got to a point recently where Zegler deleted posts on her social media, though not all, but some that feature BTS footage, behind-the-scenes footage, of herself with Gal on set for Snow White. Another example of the divide getting worse between the two each month. Now, one major criticism that Rachel had against Gal was her singing. At multiple points after the recent test screening, Rachel deeply criticized Gal's performance style as a singer, and this did not help the drama at all one bit for those working on the film. The press tour is already set to be a disaster for the film during the holiday season as it is. We already talked about how they were supposed to sing as a duo during the holiday season, right around Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, all those holidays, and that's all called off right now, and they're trying to really figure out how they're going to be able to organize that in a different fashion. So this movie has a lot going for it in a very negative way, and I think that Disney deserves every single bit of it, because this is what happens when you focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is also what happens when you pull away from the source material of the original 37 movie, and also we can't forget about them using CGI dwarfs instead of actually using real dwarfs for Snow White. Alright, that is a fine message, the most revealing image of Disney that they don't want to hire certain people for this movie. So overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.